Hello, and welcome back to Hold On, I'm Talking Brother. My name is Joe Greenwood, and this is a recap over the past weekend's action. On Flying Solo, listeners, you're going to get 30 minutes of fury from me, hopefully 30 minutes, recapping all the action from this weekend. The main topics that I will be covering will be the Korean Zombie versus Max Holloway, Oleksander Usyk versus Daniel Dubois for the heavyweight championship of the world in boxing. And then I will talk about my experience with AEW All In at Wembley Stadium. And actually, I know what you're thinking, listeners, wrestling, I don't want to hear any wrestling talk. I'm not going to be talking about the matches. I'm going to be talking about something that will tie in with everything else. Okay, so trust me when I say this. That it is worth sticking around for that. Now, let's start in the only place where we could start, which is UFC Singapore, which was headlined by Max Holloway versus the Korean Zombie. Now, overall, a pretty mediocre card, really. I mean, I just can't. There's some things on here where I just can't. I can't do this. I can't support watching this, and I can't support the how should I say this, the co-signing of saying that this is what I want to see, because they say like now where they're not in the apex or in front of a crowd, so I'll put in a bit of effort. And I will say Tyler Santos versus Aaron Blanchfield was excellent, like scrappy dogfight, Santos like throwing some nice counter combos in there, lovely sweeping right hand, and Blanchfield just having to like grit it, get through, grind her out, and which is what she did. I gave Blanchfield the 29-28, I should say, decision victory. But let's talk about the main event. Max Holloway versus Chan Sung Chung, aka the Korean Zombie. I'll put this out there right now for you. Korean Zombie is one of my absolute all-time favourite fighters. I love the Korean Zombie, and I gotta say this was pretty much a perfect way for him to go out. Even maybe more so than a win, if that makes sense. Going out swinging. He lost the first 2 rounds of the fight. He got dropped. Max was choking him with a das. It was almost like an anaconda in a way, actually, or like the sort of barrel roll position that you get in like collegiate wrestling. He got it in nice and deep, but Zombie was just not going to tap to it. Fair enough. And then he did get outworked. It was the classic Max Holloway thing. Max is he's so good. He doesn't wade in the same way that he does now. He just sort of picks and picks and picks. Lets you sort of get behind on strikes, and you're thinking like, I've got to go for this now. And then he'll intercept, cut you off, and then lead again, 1-2. From there, pulls back, and his distant management with his legs are just so good as well. And he does that through like these these low leg kicks that are just like, they're just touching. And it is just to maintain the range for the kicks from you, and for his hands as well, and for your offense that goes with that. So that was really impressive for Max. Chan Sung Jung, Zombie, he did land on Max. He landed a couple big shots, particularly just like a right hand where, he looked like he was going for a body jab down low, and then he just swung this huge right behind it, cracked Max in the first round, and sort of like paused him for a moment. And then Max got back on his bike and started moving, but I don't see that very often from Max. I think it's quite a well-worn trope on this show, but my worry for Max Holloway and the end of his career, and what's that going to look like when the chin goes. And, listener, it will go one day. It will go. And really, I should just sit back and enjoy the magic of the man. But I just can't shake it. because I look at Tony Ferguson, and I look at that fall off from his level of greatness and intensity, and we saw the fall off from Tony Ferguson before for the Gaethje fight. The Donald Cerrone fight was not particularly great. It's Tony Ferguson performance. Cowboy was washed up at that point as well. It was getting to that stage. Put together a nice run towards the end because of through veteran savvy. But yeah, even the Pettis fight, Ferguson, there was just the feet weren't moving as quickly, and of course it wasn't. He'd just come back from an injury where his knee had been completely destroyed, and it's just a bit of a worry for that. But I guess the thing for Max Holloway is that he's never really had any huge significant injuries. The issues has always been the weight cut. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I think about the accrued damage, and I think about the shots that he landed from that Zombie landed on him, where he did pause him for a moment. It's yeah, he didn't knock him down, but yeah, maybe he would have got knocked down if he was a different fighter. That same shot, but that one didn't for him. But does that mean that the damage is less? Maybe it's more because he was able to stand there and take it and feel the full brunt of it come through him. I mean, obviously we're nitpicking at this stage when it comes to brain damage, but it's always going to be there for me with Max. I'm always going to have that trepidation. And looking forward at sort of future matchups for him, I think the obvious one to me is a move up to lightweight to face Charles Oliveira if he loses to Makhachev. I think that would be just undoubtedly a beauty of a fight. I mean, Max has sort of talks about doing what the fans want him to do now, which makes me think, what trilogy with Poirier, Justin Gaethje are we talking about here? What is it that the fans want to see? Because I don't need to see him fight Volkanovski again. I don't need to even see him as champion again. If Volkanovski moves up and Max is I'm not bothered about becoming champ again. I mean, I would be surprised if that was the case. Because I know the pay is slightly different, but I believe Max is on a pretty good deal from all told. Although, with all the MMA fighters, even up to Conor McGregor, they're all underpaid, so I think it's all relative. But Max is in this kind of interesting spot of fighting contenders or fan favourites on fight nights in front of crowds instead of the Apex. I can live with this stage of his career. I think it's an interesting one for sure. I just don't really see much of a clear path for him, but maybe having that is actually the clearest path of all, because it just opens you up to all possibilities. If they turned around tomorrow or in a couple months and it's McGregor Chandler, and Chandler has to pull out through injury, which would be the potentially funniest outcome of the whole thing. I mean, I'm saying this now, if Michael Chandler gets attacked by a bear and that bear rips his leg off, Chandler will make it to that fight no matter what. So something horrendous would have to happen. But if they said, Max, do you want the Conor fight? He'll take it in a heartbeat. So yeah, it's an interesting spot for him. An even more interesting spot is that of the Korean Zombie with his retirement and what his overall spot is in the history of the sport. And it does feel like with him going and Robbie Lawler, this end of the action fighter now. Because even the action fighters that we have left, they don't just mindlessly brawl, they don't just, Gaethje has moved away from that. By the way, my hot take for that Gaethje Poirier 2 fight was that actually, even with the finish, I want to see the trilogy. I don't think, I'm just that first round was interesting. I thought it was great. Knockout was spectacular, but I'd still rather watch a third one than Gaethje Makhachev, Anyway, going back to Zombie. It's the right time to go. His last 2 fights were a loss to Volkanovski, the champion, and a loss to Max Holloway. He didn't want to go out fighting any old guy. He wanted to go out fighting those guys, because it's I want to be a champion, I've lost to the two champions, the last two featherweight champions. That means I'm not up to the standard. Time for me to go. And really, the knockout loss and how it happened is so perfect. Comes out in the third round and is just pressing it and swinging. It's just like, I don't have anything left. Those first two rounds show that I can't beat this guy on a round-by-round basis. I've got to try and go for a finish. And I might as well go for it now, whilst I've still got some capabilities. And then Max just caught him in these in-between moments, because you could see Zombie's hands were quite far apart, loading up these huge shots. Swung the right hand, got caught with Max's right as a counter on the temple, and literally, as he's going down, swings the left hand round to try and catch Max, because that was what he was going for, two big right, a right and then a big left. And he still threw the left after he got knocked down, and it sort of propelled him further down to the mat, like giving it this sort of real, like, almost like a fulcrum sort of swing movement to it, where it's just like, or it's almost like he dragged himself down. No follow-up shots. Zombie retires, and then the UFC actually nailed it with the production. They just start playing Zombie by the Cranberries. The crowd sing it, and just in a long shot, just long tracking shot, you just watch Zombie pick up his gloves. He's laid down, hugs his coaches. People are crying a bit. Comes out, and then he just walks out and around, hugs his wife. The crowd sing the song, and he walks out, and the commentary don't say anything. They just let the crowd tell the story of, like, we love this guy, we love how he did this, how he went out, we respect the fact that he's gone out now, and hey man, might as well give him his roses and cheer him off into the sunset. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Zombie is one of my all-time favourite fighters. I love the Korean Zombie. The dude is as legit as it gets in terms of action fighters, of a breed that we probably won't see for a long time. And I feel like actually that sort of action fighter does get found out, you know, in this era. But yeah, and it's great retirement matchmaking. He wants to go out fighting Max Holloway. Perfect. To be honest, those are the two things. It's just like, right, I'm going to retire if I lose. Give me the best guy that I can face that's not for the title, just to see if I've still got it, and if I've still got it, I'll keep going. Or give me some bum I can knock out. Here you go, here's Nico Price. Oleksander Usyk defeated Daniel Dubois to retain 3 of the 4 heavyweight title belts. Sad realization for me. Sorry, excuse me, was that this is going to be the only heavyweight title fight we're going to get this year. And it's Daniel Dubois. Yeah, it's just not good enough. It's not good enough from Tyson Fury. You know, he should be making this fight. He should be going out of his way to make this fight. He's just not. He's just not, because we know that Usyk is tricky for Fury, eh? Shorter in stature, southpaw. You know, the famous one is the Steve Cunningham fight, where Cunningham caused Fury a lot of problems. I mean, it was a younger Fury. You know, it was a different Fury as well. And it was, you know, it's not the Fury that's trained by Sugar Hill of the Kronk gym, the Fury who's sort of sitting on his punches a bit more and actually just trying to finish fools. You know, it's not the Fury who's trying to dance around and tire you out and make a fool of you and then maybe get a finish late on, and or just completely outclass you in every aspect, which is kind of what he used to do, and he still does to a degree now. But the problem is his last 2 fights with Dillian White and Derek Chisora, 2 guys who probably shouldn't have been in there. Yeah, one was a great homecoming in front of Wembley Stadium. I was there. The atmosphere was incredible. That's what I went for. You know, I went for the atmosphere. I went for the moment of watching a heavyweight title fight at Wembley Stadium. But, you know, you need a bit more than that now. And I don't know, like, just you need Fury if I'm going to consider him an all-time great heavyweight. which I kind of do know. I don't know, there's just asterisks on his CV. But if I'm going to get him to do that, he needs to beat Usyk. And then if you really want to like close out the loop, then fight Joshua. It seems now that Joshua's in the stage of like, well, I don't have the title, so let me try and make the fights now that are actually going to, one, get me paid a massive amount, and on the way out, he's probably got 2 or 3 fights left in him. Let me get 2 or 3 more, and then off I can go. Fury's probably thinking the same way. Probably get some massive pay deals, and then ride off. But anyway, let's talk about Usyk Dubois. The British boxing fan syndrome strikes again as Daniel Dubois hit a low blow in the 5th round that Usyk then went down and recovered from. Obviously, the ref calls time. And British boxing fans are like, that wasn't low. Here's the thing. At least half of the glove, if not a bit more, landed below the belt line. Right? And the belt line was around the belly button, if not a little bit lower. It's around about there. So it's quite a big one. So imagine like you take your belly button and then just, maybe look at couple, like imagine covering imagine covering like, I don't know, 1.5 inches below your belly button, and then imagine Daniel Dubois' gloved hand punching you across that area into your groin that has got a cup there. It's probably not going to feel great, is it? And it did pull up on the cup. Let's be honest, that's what the physics of that is. That is very painful. And Usyk went down and got, I think, about 3 minutes of recovery time. Here's the thing. Here's the controversy about this. There is none. The controversy is that Dubois was robbed, apparently, because they think that Usyk, if he had been dropped from that body shot, then he would have lost because he was down for 3 minutes. You don't think Usyk would have jumped straight back up? There is footage of that happening, of him being hit low, going down. The ref doesn't call it a low blow. So Usyk then just hops around, takes a breath, recovers, and then comes back. Here's the other thing with it. If you look at the shot again, the referee's right behind Dubois' hand. So what he sees is, he stood behind in the corner as Dubois is turning into it. So you have a clear view of the shot. And his view is right behind that. Now imagine you're behind that shot and you see it go down to that area and then you see Usyk react like that. You're going to think it's low. Okay? Then you talk about the recovery time. Oh, Usyk got to recover. Here's the other thing. Oh, sorry, let me go back to the ref thing. The ref sees it from that angle, so then he calls it a low blow. He doesn't deduct a point either from Dubois, so he doesn't get punished. But at that point, the ref's called a low blow. That's the end of it. Like, that's the end of it. Refs called it. Like, what's this hypothetical... The British boxing fan wants to create a hypothetical world where Dubois would have won from this shot. He wouldn't have won from that shot. Okay. Then, what was the other thing I was saying? The recovery time. So, like, Usyk was down for 3 minutes, and they're like, oh, well, you recovered for 3 minutes. Yeah, Dubois also recovered for 3 minutes, because Dubois looked knackered. He looked knackered from trying to, like, deal with this guy flicking and swatting at him and, landing, like, waiting and twitching and, like, oh, when's this guy going to throw? And then he finally throws, and it lands, and it hurts, and it tires you out. And Dubois was getting frustrated. You could see he was getting a bit tired. Okay, fine. And then what happens is that Dubois has that 3 minutes, and then he wins the next 2 rounds. He had recovery time. He was able to put in his best 2 rounds after that. Skip to round 8. Usyk drops him. Sort of cuffs him around the top of the head with his left. And then the finish in the 9th, it was with a jab. It was with a jab, and Dubois went down. And then he got up as the ref was counting 9 into 10, which is the, I want out of this, but I want to sort of like look good at the same time. I think he should have just stayed down for the 10. He's done this before against Joe Joyce. The Joe Joyce one was obviously a lot more brutal because his eye had blown up. But Dubois wanted out. He was exhausted. He doesn't have 12 rounds for someone like Usyk. He wanted out of this. And going back to the body shot thing of like, he landed body shots on Usyk. Yeah. And he never went down, Usyk. He never looked particularly bothered by it. Like, after the low blow. Like, it's not like those 3 minutes, oh, his body's fully recovered. What? What are you talking about? Nonsense. That fight took place in Warsaw, in the National Stadium there, the football stadium. And what also took place this Sunday in a national football stadium in London, at Wembley Stadium, was AEW All Elite Wrestling, their pay-per-view All In. Now, I'm a pro wrestling fan. I'm going to keep the pro wrestling talk of it to a minimum, because that's not what we're here for. But what I'm going to talk about is, I want to talk about the deal with it, and I want to talk about the experience of it, and then I want to apply it to fight promotions, particularly the UFC. AEW ran their first show in the UK, and their decision was, instead of going with like a smaller arena and selling that out, doing 16,000 tickets, they're like, let's do a stadium and push it, yeah? Now, when that went on sale, I'm like, if they do 50,000, that's an amazing success, yeah? 50,000 in Wembley for a first-time show in the UK, amazing. They did 81,000. 81,000, just over 81,000 were in there. And I was one of them. And the atmosphere was incredible. It was absolutely incredible, because everyone was so, like, frothing at the mouth for this, yeah? The show itself was excellent. The production was superb. Because that's the thing when you go into a stadium, is that it opens up so many more production opportunities for you. Like, they've got that, I don't know the name of it, but you know that gliding camera that's on, like, the rope that goes along? And, like, they had a lot of cranes as well. They had multiple cranes, so they were doing quite a few crane shots, but they had that sort of one on the sort of rope that's flying over the pitch, and they were using that as well. And when I went back and watched some of the show today, I was really impressed by the production of it. My view, I was on the top tier at Wembley Stadium, third row, so I was towards the front, behind the entrance, and I had a clear view of the ring. Yeah, obviously it's a bit small, but whatever, I can deal with that. And screens all around where you could go up and check if there was like, I didn't quite see that, let's see. Oh, okay, I can see it now. So that tended to be how I viewed it. The price for that ticket was £30, and it was £30 very well spent. They did a very big gate, millions made, great success for Tony Khan, who runs AEW, and yeah, it was really quite something. And then afterwards I was thinking about this, like, you know, Dana has said that he doesn't want to do stadiums because of the viewing experience, and I somewhat get that. But then I'm watching this at Wembley Stadium, like, this is a pretty good view. This is a pretty good view. And I'm like, I don't know if I buy it, you know? I don't know if I buy it. Like, I think this is the thing that irritates me, is that the UFC has all this capability to do a stadium show, and then they just choose not to. They choose not to. You know, they could do Wembley Stadium. Of course they could. The issue would probably be the ticket prices, though, because it's like, well, the £30 ticket that I bought, they wouldn't charge £30 for it. They should charge £30 for it, because that's a good price. That's a good deal. You know, they probably charge well over 100 for it, and then if you're in the back row, that probably would be about 100. You know, that's what you'd be looking at for a UFC show there, because they want to maximise the amount of money that they can make. Also, I think also part of the issue of the UFC's booking is that they do the WWE thing, which is the city bids. So WWE, there's been a lot of talk about WWE doing WrestleMania, their big show, in the UK at Wembley Stadium. It's been spoken of. And they finally came last year to the UK and did a big show there. They did it in Cardiff. You know? Turns out Cardiff paid WWE to go there. WWE and the UFC want cities to pay for them to come, particularly international cities. Okay, and that's why London has never done that, because London doesn't do that. Because, let's be honest, the idea of London paying for the UFC to come and run Wembley Stadium is frankly ludicrous. UFC will make so much money. WWE would make so much money from doing Wembley Stadium, but they want more, yeah, to a degree that it's like, is it even worth giving them that money? Is it also the fear that they wouldn't be able to sell 80,000 tickets? Like, could they sell 80,000 tickets? Probably not at the price range that they set it at now. What was the cheapest ticket for that UFC London card? Like a month or so back, the Aspinall Tybura one. It was like 250 quid. Couldn't do that at Wembley. That's a fucking piss take. The other thing I want to talk about with the production and the thing of doing it in a stadium is, one, the production. Like AEW they didn't have like a super elaborate entrance. It was kind of like this rectangular sort of shape, lights, and it had a tunnel coming out through the middle. But, you know, people were coming out and they had their Titantron that was unique to them, and it sort of gave them, obviously, because it's pro wrestling, they've got this control. They sort of made them, gave them that sort of unique feeling. Imagine the UFC did that. Like, they did a show at a stadium, and they packed out the show in terms of the cars. They had Sean O'Malley on there, they had Conor McGregor on there, you know, against whoever. And they were just like, absolutely, they could go all out on the production on that, do a huge entrance ramp, but they wouldn't do the entrance ramp thing because they want to put seats in there, because the seats are more valuable than the production. And it's just like, sometimes you just have to sacrifice some seating so that you can give the viewing experience, and actually the experience of being there for an entrance ramp, to be, you know, a bit special. I mean, I was sat behind the entrance ramp, but I could still see down into it and see them walking out through it and giving you a clear view of the person as well. I can imagine a UFC card with that. And also, talking about the All In card, there was something that, like, I thought was quite excellent, which was, as the wrestler Sting, all-time great wrestler, started in the 80s, you know, and is still wrestling now, but they use him quite well for using an older guy. Doesn't do supercells. I mean, he still does crazy moves sometimes for a bloke of his age, but listen, I love the Stinger, one of my all-time favourites. But Tony Khan paid for his music, and they paid to have Metallica Seek and Destroy, which was Sting's entrance music back in the 90s in WCW. The experience of watching that crowd pop because they're playing Seek and Destroy, then the second pop of like, oh, it's Sting's old music, and then the third pop of them singing it along, of singing Seek and Destroy as Sting is coming out. Imagine if the UFC could do that for some of their veterans, some of their icons, you know, to have a crowd go crazy and give them that moment, you know, to sing along with them. You know, it's like, I'm with you right now. Imagine if you could give that to these guys, to give, like, you know, if they did a card in a stadium and they had, like, say, you know, they probably have to please beg him, but like, Tony, we're going to give you one more fight, is going to be at this stadium. We want you to go out and have a glorious performance and fight in front of all these people so that they can show their love and appreciation to you. That would be amazing. Like, that would be amazing. The moments that you can get in a stadium is, obviously they're a lot more grand because of the amount of people there. You know, the people that have come to see you. That's the other thing with the UFC, and actually MMA and pro wrestling in general, is that people turn up early. Like, then it's not like boxing where they turn up at the last second. You see these stadium shows for boxing, no one's out there for the fucking co-main, they're there for the main event. But wrestling and in MMA, people turn up early. It's not going to look bad on the UFC in a stadium because there'll be loads of people there. Of course you'll see loads of empty seats because it's early. Yeah, it's going to be a drunk, coked up crowd there. At the wrestling, it's a bit of a nicer crowd for the most part. Yeah, some people are drunk, but, you know, it doesn't have this violent edge to it in the same way. And it was quite nice walking back out Wembley when I was talking to my friend about the experience of walking out of the Fury fight last year. Just the atmosphere was just horrendous on that. Really, just nasty. Just a really nasty vibe. I don't know. I just think that like you could do it with this company. It doesn't have to be in the UK. It doesn't have to be at London for these stadium shows. But if you want the best atmosphere, you'd want to do it in a UK. I mean, why couldn't you do it at like? I mean, they talk about the weather, but it's just like you can protect the ring. I'm not fully having these excuses anymore. What else do I want to say quickly off the top of my head? Anyway, great show. Great show. I mean, the best wrestling show I've ever been to. Really highly recommend it. Recommend you go back and watch it if you've not seen it. And yeah, that's it. Listeners, leave a like or a comment. We will get back to you in the comments, either on the show or in the comment section itself. You can send us an email at hollonbrothers69@gmail.com. I have been Joe Greenwood, and I will be back next week, most likely, to talk about, UFC Paris this weekend. The Spiv is back. The Spivinator facing Cyril Gane. Spiv must be thinking, I'm taking this mother effer down to Chinatown. Alright? Listeners, I'll see you then. Have a good evening. God bless.